World geography: Russia, Caucasus, Central Asia. Human-environment interaction. Here are the learning objectives. 1. Why do you think Russia, west of the Urals, is more densely populated than the region east of the Urals? 2. Describe the shrinking Aral Sea's effect on the surrounding environment. 3. What are the benefits and costs of nuclear power? Population distribution. West of Ural Mountains. Most Russians live west of the Ural Mountains due to the temperate climate and rich soil in the area. The rich soil is known as Chernozem. This supports a lot of agricultural activity. Also, west of the Ural Mountains, there's a lot of cultural, political, and economic centers of urban activity. East of Ural Mountains. East of the Ural Mountains, the region of Siberia is sparsely populated due to its extremely harsh winters, the fact that the region is landlocked with the frozen Arctic Ocean to the far north. Short and cool summers, they don't support agriculture. Rural Russia. Russia is unique. It has many isolated small towns that are hundreds of miles away from the major population centers. Rural Russian towns are characterized by their poor living conditions, high unemployment, low salaries, and a lack of reliable electricity. Young people usually leave these rural communities as soon as possible for opportunities in the larger cities, leaving the old people behind. Here's a population density map of Russia and the surrounding countries, and you can see right away that population is more dense west of the Urals, and out east there's not as many people. Most people live along the rivers, as you can see, or along the southern border where it's warmer. Irrigation. Irrigation is the application of water to soil to assist in the growing of agricultural crops. Two types of irrigation. One, you can divert water from rivers and lakes into small channels or canals that flow into the fields. The second type of irrigation is pretty unsustainable, and it involves pumping water from the underground aquifer. Irrigation has led to the growth of agricultural civilizations for thousands of years. The Aral Sea. Water sources. The Aral Sea is a landlocked body of salt water in the midst of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan deserts. The Amu Darya, which originates in the snowmelt of the Hindu Kush Mountains, feeds the Aral Sea. It flows right across the desert and into the sea. The sea also receives water from the Syr Darya River. These two rivers have supplied the Aral Sea with fresh water for 10,000 years. Until 1960, the Aral Sea was the fourth largest lake in the world. Here you have a map of the Syr Darya and the Amu Darya flowing out of the Hindu Kush mountain region and across the desert and into the Aral Sea. Mega farms on arid lands. In the 1960s, authorities in the Soviet Union, they decided that they would take water from the rivers that fed the Aral Sea and use this water to irrigate new mega farms. The Soviets were hoping to become self-sufficient in wheat and cotton production. Initial successes led to population increases near the sea. Shrinking sea. Over time, though, water use from the two rivers increased, and less fresh water reached the Aral Sea, and in 2007, the Aral Sea was just 10% of its original size. So you can see a picture at the top of the 1960s, that's the Aral Sea at the top, and at the bottom is the Aral Sea in 2007. Significant shrinkage there. Salinization. Once the Aral Sea's volume began to drop due to these water diversion projects for irrigation, the sea began to evaporate more rapidly, and its salinity more than doubled. Salinization refers to the salt content that's near the soil surface. In general, most salt is carried by rivers downstream to the ocean, but some rivers end in lakes or in inland seas. And if no water flows out of the lake, the salt has nowhere to go. So when the water evaporates from a landlocked lake, the salt is left behind. Climate change. The shrinking Aral Sea has caused climate change in the immediate area. Summers are hotter and drier, and the winters are colder and longer. Pollution and disease. The runoff of fertilizers from the fields and pesticides and herbicides from the fields, they've killed the sea's remaining fish. Local medical problems are often blamed on the salt and sand and chemicals that are in the air from these huge storms. Throat cancer and tuberculosis are growing problems, and the local infant mortality rate is one of the highest in the world. Nuclear power. Production of electricity. Nuclear reactors produce electricity by boiling water into steam, which then turns the turbines. A turbine is a machine like a fan that produces continuous power where the wheel or the rotor is fitted with vanes, and then they're made to revolve by a fast-moving flow of water, steam, gas or air, or any other fluid. Nuclear power plants use radioactive uranium fuel, and in a controlled splitting of uranium atoms called fission, heat or energy is released, which then boils that water, turning it into steam, and then turning the turbines. Benefits and costs. One of the benefits of nuclear power is that it produces less air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions than plants that utilize fossil fuels like coal. Some costs, though, are that the technology used to generate nuclear power can also be used to produce dangerous nuclear weapons. And the fission process creates radioactive waste as a byproduct, and this has to be stored away for many years. Exposure to radioactive materials can cause human cancers. Chernobyl. Nuclear accident. The 1986 explosion of the Chernobyl nuclear power station in Pripyat, Ukraine, is one of the world's worst nuclear disasters. The top of the containment building was blown off in a nuclear meltdown, and radioactive material was expelled into the atmosphere. The core of the nuclear reactor was eventually sealed off by using helicopters to airdrop a cement mixture. 8 tons of radioactive material escaped into the environment. If you look closely at this map of the Chernobyl incident, you see Chernobyl in Ukraine, and the kind of yellowish cloud is the nuclear cloud that first blew west into the United Kingdom and Scandinavia, and then blew back east across Russia and China, and then on to Japan, spreading radioactive waste throughout this area to varying degrees. consequences. People who lived near Chernobyl at the time of the accident, they've experienced an increase in thyroid cancers, and in genetic mutations have been discovered in the children of parents who were exposed. 4,400 people died as a result of the accident and the cleanup, and local farm products, they were contaminated by radioactive fallout and had to be destroyed, leading to huge economic losses. The end. Thank you for listening.